Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. And as Scott predicted, it's one thing to gentlemen's agreement snaking, it's another thing entirely to actually uphold said agreement. Word on the street is that Seattle Surge over the last couple of days have had rather a difficult time in breaking the habit of snaking to such an extent that OpTic chalked off the final couple of maps of a scrim against them because they simply wouldn't stop snaking. Especially when Crowder says that Cellium immediately stopped snaking. You gotta wonder, at what point does it become merely you've got to break the habit, and at what point is it actually intentional to keep on snaking? Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. First of all, one confirmation that came through yesterday from the Boston Breach side. Pentagram confirming him on their substitute roster. Now, well, they've got their academy team. It's Doug, it's Pentagram, it's JurNii, it's Craze. With Magic, I guess, is over here as the coach of the roster, which is kind of cool stuff. But Pentagram will be their official CDL substitute for the upcoming season. Haven't had many confirmations, to be fair, for many teams at all on who their sub is going to be. And to be fair, that usually doesn't happen until the season kind of starts, because quite often they'll tend to find the best players in challenges and sign them as their sub. The issue is, Challengers doesn't really exist right now. They're waiting for something to start. I don't know. Game MettalZ is shutting down. We talked about it in a bit of detail yesterday, but it kind of means the pro teams, okay, they can find players that they want to sign. Pentagram, of course, a great option, but I think a lot of them will just put their coach's name down because that saves a bit of money as well. But Boston is still committed to their academy project, which is cool to see. Also from the Hex quarters, seems like it's kind of officially over now. I think it was, I don't know if it was like early November or something like that when the lease was going to be up. So they're now full-time downtown Dallas. Dashy's moved in. It makes a lot of sense. Also, speaking of Dashy, OpTic, and basically every other team, well, there's, I guess, 6 teams that play on day one. But day one, the kickoff day of the CDL, is now less than a week away. December the 8th is when it officially kicks off on the upcoming Friday. So less than a week away. The CDL decided to make an announcement about this, and this, for example, was on their Instagram yesterday, where we can see the graphic they put together for the opening weekends. Now, just if you wanted to pause and spot a couple of errors on this graphic, feel free to do so. It shouldn't be particularly difficult. We'll start with the date, because, look, I'm not saying I'm immune from errors, and I've made them before, you know, editing errors, things I've said that might be wrong, but, look, I'm not the official outlet for the CDL, and every single time they make an error, I'm going to talk about it because it always frustrates me, especially on their website, which is always the thing, but even with their graphics, because here we go. The opening weekend. This is the one that you've got to get right. When does the league start? Friday, December the 5th. Well, no, it's not December the 5th, it's December the 8th. Now, look, they eventually fix this, and they always do, but come on. And the other thing you guys may have noticed is that Los Angeles Thieves is not spelled correctly, because Thieves is I before E, so, yeah, well done, everyone. Eventually, they did fix this and put the correct one out, but even then, with the corrected version, where do we watch this? Do they tell us? No. Twitch, YouTube, Kick.com, like OnlyFans, live streaming, I don't know. Surely it should say here at the bottom somewhere, but we just don't know. Is the YouTube deal a thing? Is it not? It's, yeah, it's an absolute mess. And I even saw some rumor going around yesterday about, like, the observers that are going to be doing it for the league and for challenges, like, hadn't been informed on time, and it's been apparently an absolute mess behind the scenes. So I don't know if this opening weekend is going to go well or going to go terribly, but I guess we'll have to stay tuned and find out. But we still don't know where it is, even though they did fix the graphic for the couple of things that they made a mistake on. Now, let's talk about snaking. It's been the big talking point of the last couple of days. If you guys don't know snaking, it's what Clay is doing right here, going prone, just standing up and being a very difficult target to kill. The main reason why it's problematic is because from the other person's point of view, it's, yeah, it's basically impossible to kill them. And we know that the way the hardpoints are in this game, it's something that the pros decided, all right, if we get rid of this, if we can agree as gentlemen not to do it anymore, it's going to make the experience way better. However, it takes a bit of time to adapt, and I get that. When you've done it, you know, for a long time now, for the last several years, this is all the pros have been doing, every single scrim, every single match, every single series of 8s, so I get it, it's going to take a little bit of time to adapt away. But how long is a reasonable amount of time to adapt away? Because it took Clayster, like, you know, 1 or 2 maps, basically, to be like, okay, yeah, actually, yeah, let me stop doing this, let me turn off this muscle memory and let me just play normally again. And I don't think it should be too hard to do exactly that. But still, the GA is in place. Scump did say, though, we looked at it yesterday, and I'll show another clip just here, that at some point this might all come crashing down. I don't know how quickly this may or may not happen. It's very possible that as soon as the matches start, somebody does it and all hell breaks loose. And I feel like that's more likely to happen than not at some point in the season. I don't know when, but Scump says the way the pros are nowadays, I don't necessarily trust them in the fact that at some point it's not going to be an absolute shambles. And it may well be. However, Crowder said, because Cellium has been, considered, whether you think that's valid or not, and we'll talk about that later today, the chief culprit, I guess, of this over the last couple of years. But as soon as FaZe agreed, as other teams did, to GA snaking, the very first scrim they played, according to Crowder, didn't snake at all. Immediately switched it off, and, the people that are saying that Cellium's going to be bad now without snaking, like, I don't really think they know gun particularly well, because Cellium's nasty, is going to be nasty anyway, but still, was he a prime snaking abuser? Arguably, yes. But if Cellium can turn off the snaking and basically immediately decide, all right, you guys don't want to do it anymore, that's fine, I will not snake. Okay, sure, maybe I'll crouch up and down, maybe I'll do some sort of, pop-up glitch or whatever, as Crowder describes it, but still, it's not as egregious as snaking is, and therefore, that's going to be fine. So if Cellium can turn off the snaking, and his team can turn off the snaking, why can't other people turn off the snaking as well?
And I know that you guys are asking about snaking and shit. I watched an entire scrim today, and everyone obviously loves to hate on Cell. Cell didn't snake a single time in the scrim today. So everyone claiming that they can't break the habit is fugazi, bro. People are pop-up glitching left and right, but technically not doing what's the contract? Like 3 snakes in a row or some shit?
That people are gonna break that GA at some point throughout the year. You already know. It's gonna happen. This GA right here, this GA is a dam. It's a dam that's eventually, there's going to be little cracks in it, right? And a little bit of water is going to start trickling through it until it eventually just bursts. At least that's how I see it going. Hopefully the pros are actually they respect this. They respect the GA, and we don't see snaking. I think the game will play a lot better without it. Is there a skill gap with snaking? Sure. There's people that are better at snaking, better at utilizing it than others. But I think it's kind of game breaking, and we're gonna see a year, or at least a couple. We're gonna see at least a couple weeks. I mean, hopefully it sticks up.
Because we saw this in Pred yesterday when he says, "Wow, the game's so much better without snaking. Who could have guessed?" Then he says, "Spoke too soon, spoke too early." So this came seemingly during or after a scrim set, and we wondered yesterday, what does this refer to? Who's he talking about? And who has, broken this GA? And, well, it seems we now have an answer to it, because as Ronnie said yesterday on Twitter, Surge is still snaking. That's the word on the street. Now, we know that the theoretical situation here is that if you snake, you're going to get blacklisted, and we'll get into that in a second. Also, as Crowder said, though, the idea that, well, how many times can you do it? If you snake once or twice, is that fine? If you snake 3 times, is that kind of where you cross the line? I don't know, but I think there's quite a clear line. And the pros understand what snaking is, why it's a frustrating feature of the game, and if somebody does it to them, especially if you're doing it again and again and again, surely your brain is going to tell you, oh, that was a bit too much. If you snake once or twice on a heady, because it's muscle memory, I get it, but surely you can't just be there snaking a heady 10 or 15 times in a row, and your brain doesn't kick in and tell you, oh, this is banned now, I'm not meant to do this anymore. Because, as Crowder said, if Cellium could do it, then I feel like everyone else can do it as well. So this is the question about Surge, whether this was merely an accident, or whether it's merely taking them longer than other teams to adapt to the new GA, or whether there was, whether there's anything intentional in this, because obviously Ronnie says Surge is still snaking, that's the word on the street. Are you bored, says Arcitys? And, it was even mentioned, and I didn't really see too many clips of this, but people said that after snaking was GA'd, eLLi was still snaking all over the shop in 8s and stuff like this, so maybe that's still the case in practice, I don't know, but it was definitely a talking point that was going around, in addition to what Ronnie says here on the Reddit, where he says, but when a team tells you to stop and you still keep doing it, so much so that the last 2 maps get cancelled, and Ronnie goes on to clarify that yes, OpTic chalked the last 2 maps versus them because of it. So apparently OpTic was scrimming up against, they weren't streaming unfortunately, up against Seattle, and I don't know, eLLi or whoever was snaking on the other side to such a degree that OpTic apparently told them, look guys, stop snaking. I mean, we've had enough maps at this point. It's GA'd, and, if you keep doing it, we're going to chalk off the scrim. They kept doing it, and OpTic chalked off the scrim. So, that's seemingly what Pred is getting at here. So, that's the debate as to whether this was, intentional. Was eLLi? We don't know if it's eLLi, but let's say it was eLLi, snaking headies again and again. is he just having to adapt to the muscle memory and it's going to take him some time? Or is there, was he doing it intentionally because he feels like the GA isn't going to be upheld anyway, so why bother? And this is what the Challengers players said, that, well, somebody's going to break it at some point, so we might as well break it now. I don't think that's good logic, but some people go with that logic, I guess. So Clay defends Surge and says, look, people are insane thinking you can just unlearn the muscle memory immediately, which is, sure, it took Clay a little bit of time. He actually goes on to clarify that it took him like 1 series of 8. Obviously, Ronnie also replies with the clip that we saw from Crowder. And Clay's saying, yeah, like people that say you can't break the habit aren't, that's not true. You can break the habit because you can break it. It took me 1 8 series. It'll take some people a couple of days, which might be, this might be fair enough from Clay, and I totally get his perspective. But I don't know. I can't imagine that you're going to snake a heady again for like 10 seconds in a row and not think, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. And then, I don't know. It's interesting. Some pros have adapted quicker, some pros haven't, and the belief tends to be from the Surge guys that, look, we are trying not to do it, but it's taken us a bit of time. And, as Arcitys says, let's think about it. Some of these guys, maybe his teammates, have had snaking in their gameplay forever, and obviously first day of not doing it, they're going to mess up. We're not sitting here saying just keep doing it. So, Arcitys is saying, look, we're trying to stop doing it as a team. That is our intention. But, and it's bad habits. You couldn't really get into snaking because when I became pro, it was never allowed. So it was an easy fix for me. It's how you started. So I don't know, maybe he's, guys like aBeZy, and to be fair, Illy's been around quite some time as well. But to be fair, even since Illy's been around in the Pro League, it's kind of been, snaking's been pretty much done most of those years. So I guess it then leads on to the question that if Surge continue to do this, or if anybody else continues to do it, then does the blacklist actually come into effect? Because that is the intended punishment, right? If you're going to keep snaking, and if you don't agree to a GA, it was the same thing back in Cold War when the pros were trying to GA like the QBZ or whatever that gun was. They got rid of the M4, then I think they were trying to GA the QBZ or something. I don't even know if it was that good, but whatever. Some of the pro teams wanted to GA it, and they said, oh, well, if you're not agreeing to not use the QBZ, we're just going to, not scrim you guys because we want to run the game without it. And eventually the pros are going, oh, well, I guess we kind of have to agree. So this is the thing for Surge. They obviously can't afford to get blacklisted because, who your scrim partner is going to be. And the other issue that we've said with the blacklist is that, well, if it's Cell or if it's FaZe that are doing it, then people still kind of want to scrim FaZe because they're FaZe and they're the best practice that you can usually get. But if it's Surge, sure, apparently Surge are pretty good at the moment and they should be a reasonable team in the meta we currently have. But I don't think too many teams are going to be like, oh no, we simply cannot afford to stop scrimming Surge. They'll just think, we'll scrim someone else. And there's good practice even in challenges from Temp's team and stuff like this as well. So that's kind of, where I'm at on it, is that I don't think Surge can get away with this. Now, maybe these individuals, they turn up to a CDL match and they still pop it. And then we have a whole different debate. But in practice, I'm guessing that Surge are going to try and, stop this one, but I just find the discrepancy kind of interesting between what some players say, that it's very easy to stop snaking immediately as soon as you realise that it's not allowed, and some players apparently taking days to adapt to it. But clearly Surge must realise that if they don't stop as soon as they can, then teams are going to start blacklisting them, because clearly, it's become kind of public now that it was maybe Surge that were having issues stopping over the last couple of days, to such a degree that OpTic, okay, they didn't blacklist them, but they cancelled the last couple of maps because they simply didn't want to play a team that was doing that. And if Surge don't agree to stop, then it's not like OpTic are going to scrim them again. So, it's kind of not exactly a full blacklist, but maybe they're on like the pre-blacklist at the moment. Intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comments below. Just before we close out though, this is interesting. From Ravens, they say, your questions answered, most of them. Clay, GodRx, Gwyn, and Saint will be doing a live Q&A discussing things. Now, it wasn't that long ago where Dominate, who was former coach for these guys, said that many of the players and even himself were owed a lot of money by the Ravens. Now, Ravens are no longer London, they're now in Carolina, but it's still the same guys, and as Dominate says, this may be the one that doesn't get answered, here or over email as I've experienced, but fancy paying out the money you owe to me, current employees, previous landlords of the houses the last season maybe, thumbs up. So, I kind of feel bad for the social media guy who's got to deal with this, but fair enough, because, if they owe money that hasn't been paid, then they deserve to get called out for it. So I will keep mentioning this stuff until hopefully it gets resolved, because it's not like they've gone bankrupt. It's not like Ravens no longer exist. This has happened multiple times in esports history where an organization will owe money and then they run out the money themselves. The organization folds and then there's simply no money to pay the players anyway. So it doesn't matter what lawyers you get involved, but as long as the organization still exists and is a proper franchise team, there must be legal repercussions here that Dominator and everyone else can make. But, you know, I guess tweeting about it can't hurt either. But very much enjoyed your thoughts on all this stuff in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.